Harley Davidson flashing clock on startup. Watch this video. Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. I hope you're all well. This is a very quick video in direct response to actually quite a few emails that I've got recently about the flashing clock on your Harley Davidson in particular. Now, this could apply to the Taurus, it could certainly apply to the Softails, and lots of people think that it's always the battery. It's the battery issue. Now, it could be, but before you start digging into the battery and changing batteries and looking at why it isn't charging and everything like that, and looking at voltage regulators and rectifiers and things like that, there is something I want to draw your attention to. I made a video about 5 years ago about the removal of the tank and the instrument console on Harley Davidson Softail, which I have, the Sport Glide. And I talked about the connector. There's a little connector that joins the wiring harness that comes out of the frame to the instrument console, to your dash. Now, different Softails have different instrument designs, of course, different dash designs. Some are placed on the tank, some are placed on the handlebars, but essentially you're still going to have a connector that goes from the display into the harness. So you've got to seek out that tiny white connector. And it's that connector that can be the problem. It could be a poor connector. It might not have been homed properly. And this can happen when you've sent your bike in for a service or sent your bike in to have some work done on it. The mechanics takes the tank off, take the instrument console off. They disconnect that connector. It's a tiny little connector. It's really fiddly. Then when they put everything back together, they put it there and it seats in there, but it's not seated quite right. Or there's a little bit of grime in there. The connector's a little bit dirty. Over a period of time, that connector can get loose as well if you've had repeated tank removals, that kind of thing. So it's that connector that you've got to have a look at. Don't ignore the battery for now, but certainly your first port of call is look at the tiny little connector that goes from the instrument console, and then it will feed like a wire that feed out in front of the tank in my case, and it will go through a rubber grommet into the frame, and that's where the connector is. That's what you want to look at. So disconnect that connector, give it a good clean inside, make sure it fits properly, and then put it all back together and see if your clock starts flashing or it goes to zero once you try and start the bike. Now, there's lots of reasons why your clock will start flashing on start or when you just turn on the ignition. Well, the reason is that the battery is either gone flat, or the battery's been disconnected, or you've pulled out the main fuse on the bike. That will always cause that clock to reset or require resetting. It will start it flashing. There's another reason as well where your battery terminals might be loose as well. So it's having an intermittent kind of power to the rest of the bike. So that could cause it. But it's a power delivery issue and not necessarily the amount of power that's coming from the battery. Remember, it's only a very small amount of power that's going to the clock anyway. So just changing your battery is not necessarily the reason. Now, there is one other issue here I want to draw your attention to. There could be a problem with the battery in very cold temperatures. Now, I'm talking, let's say, sub-zero temperatures, or when you haven't started your bike for quite a while, let's say over winter, where you hit that starter for the first time, the bike is really going to draw a lot of power, or the starter motor is going to draw a lot of power because everything's cold in that engine. Nothing's been worked. I wouldn't say it's seized, but it requires that extra torque, extra power to get it moving. And that draws a lot of power from the battery, and that could cause a power problem or power delivery problem up to the instrument console. But then again, before changing the battery, even in those conditions where you see the clock flashing, I would always go to that connector first, make sure that's properly homed, make sure it's clean, and then reverse your way back and see what else it could be. But before changing the battery, look at that connector, and this should stop your clock flashing or you having to reset it all the time. But just remember, if you've disconnected the battery, you've removed the main fuse, if you've got poor battery terminals, they're loose, then this is going to cause the same issue again. Hope you found that useful. If you like what I do here, just keep on watching the videos, and I'll catch you again. Bye now.